Welcome to the Black Male Impact. Today we have with us Chief Gary Hill, who is a pioneer, who is making a difference within our community. And Chief Hill, thanks for being here on the Black Male Impact.
Thanks for having me, Dr. Cross. I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to talk on your podcast.
Man, I appreciate you being here. And but before we get into the conversation, I want you to, if you don't mind, please share with the listeners something about yourself so they can get a feel of who you are before we start the conversation.
Absolutely. I'm originally from Muskogee, Oklahoma. Proud to be an Okie from Muskogee. I'm a product of a teenage mother who, when she turned 17, she went into the military to be able to provide and give us insurance. My mother is she's probably my rock. She's my inspiration. She went on to almost complete her PhD, even after going into the military at the age of 17, and until she had a stroke. And that's when she stopped her process, but she's doing well. Mother married a man who I consider to be my father in 1984. He was in the military also. So I've lived in 26 different states and 2 different countries. So I'm pretty, I like to say I'm pretty well-rounded. I come to Lincoln University because I didn't get a football scholarship to play ball in OU in Oklahoma. And I really didn't know when I came to Lincoln University what I wanted to do when I got here. So in turn, when I got here to Lincoln University, I lasted about a semester and a half. I got kicked out of Lincoln University in 1993 for fighting in my grades, and I was told that I could not come back here until 1996. 1996 rolls around. By that time, I made a whole bunch of bad decisions and ended up having a child myself, and got back in school and had a mouth depending on me to eat. So school hit kind of different when you're paying for it out of your own pocket and you have people depending on you.
Right.
So once I got back in school, I went straight through to get my bachelor's degree in criminal justice in 2001. Got my master's degree in criminal justice from Columbia College in 2006. And currently right now, I am a criminal justice doctoral student at North Central, and I defend my dissertation in July.
Man, that's awesome. That's awesome. And now just listening to your story and see how it all started to be where you are. I know you haven't shared much about the other accomplishments, but I hopefully I get that into the conversation because you're making strides, especially knowing that you say you got in fight when you were pretty young. So being the person now that helping others to see themselves beyond those situations is just amazing. But we will get there. So my first question to you is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
And so the mindset to take a positive impact, I always say a lot of that stuff has to come from within, because oftentimes people are looking for it to come from someone else. But sometimes, that motivation has got to come from within. Where do you want to be? Why are you here? We often forget that question in the grand scheme of things, or why are we here? I think it's my life's work to be able to help others, to bring others along. I am a big proponent of looking at the past and looking at what our ancestors had to go through to get to the point to where we are now, to where we can do the things that we need to do to be successful. So I think the motivation has to come from one within, but it has to come also too from a sense of responsibility to those that came before us and the sacrifices that they made to get us to this point where we have the opportunities that we have. And so it's a big respect thing. And so I think you have to respect yourself, get that motivation from within to respect those that came before you, to continue to drive the needle, to move forward, to make progress for us.
Well, and I do agree with you, especially knowing that we are standing on the shoulders of giants, knowing that those who came before us had really set a foundation. It's just now for us to build on and realize now we have more than they had. So we should just take that as an inspiration to move the needle forward, as you said, and it's always coming from within. Once the motivation comes from within, it's easier to go through the everyday challenges that life sometimes present to us. And if we can do that, will definitely make a difference, make a positive impact.
That was my inspiration for creating the Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy. And so, being the first law enforcement training academy at a historically Black college or university, again, we had absolutely no idea that we were going to be the first. I thought to myself, surely somebody else has done this or thought about this, putting a police academy on a historically Black college or university, but we were wrong on that. And so that's, as you say, made us the pioneers. But what I use in general, I took a lot of flack when we created this academy because people felt like it was just the wrong time for us to be able to do this because we opened our doors during the George Floyd and right after the George Floyd incident in Minneapolis. And a lot of people felt like me opening a police academy on the campus of an HBCU was insensitive and that it was not the right time to be thinking about that because there were some people out there talking about the whole defund the police thing. And I thought to myself, now is the best time for us to be able to do this. And this is why. I look at it like this. So some of the first police officers in the United States picked up the badge in the early and late 1890s.
Yeah.
Talking about U.S. Marshals and things like that who were Black. They were able to pick up the badge and do the job back then when race relations were at its all-time worst.
Yeah.
All-time worst. So if Black people can pick up the badge and do it back then, we damn sure better be able to pick up the badge and step up our game and do it now when things are a whole lot better now than they were back then when people who wore the badge that looked like me were doing this job. So that's that motivation that I also present to our recruits and our academy students, especially our academy students of color. Well, they're constantly getting bombarded with things that they see on the news and TV and things like that. And I say to them, guys, this is nothing compared to what Black people who were cops prior to you all in the early 1900s, 1910, 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s went through. We can do this.
Yeah.
This is nothing. So that's that motivation that I use in the police academy, especially for our Black and brown recruits, to get them to understand just how big this job is and that some of the things that they see on TV and some of the things that they hear are small compared to what the people before us went through doing this job.
And I'm glad you say you decided actually to, when they say this is not the right time. But when you look at it now, you realize it's the right time. So we have to appreciate that you still went ahead with the vision to make a difference. And a lot of times our communities, we say there are not enough Black police officers or the police officers don't look like the communities they're in. But if we don't become police officers, how can we counteract or have more Black police officers within the community? Because that's one of the change that we need to see within our community, so we can have the people that looks like us, works with us, because they may have a better understanding, but it can also prevent some of the things because now they're present in those spaces. So man, I really appreciate the initiative and what you're doing for not just this school, but just across the country, because others have seen the work.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the things that people forget and that we use as a recruiting tool, and I just spoke about this the other day, and that is when you look at the data and what the data tells us, the data tells us when it comes to use of force, Black cops use less force than our white counterparts. That data is out there. There are several reports out there. Don't just believe me. Go do the research yourself. But there are reports out there, several of them, and one just completed by Texas Southern, I believe, that shows the data shows that Black officers are less likely to use less force. And the data shows that in comparison to our white counterparts. So that's huge. And that's a huge selling point for us as far as when we're recruiting Black and brown people to be in law enforcement. That's huge. It's not just so for the diversity aspect of it. Because remember, when we're talking about diversity in law enforcement, we not only need diversity of skin color, but we have to have diversity of thought. We can't have Black and brown people getting in there with the same mindset as our white counterparts because we're not changing anything. We just have people that look like the community, but we don't have that diversity piece. So that's what we have to continue to have. Once you get into a law enforcement agency, you have to continue to keep yourself. You have to continue to be that person that you were when you were hired, because that's what the community needs. We don't need any more robots. We don't need anyone else conforming to the status quo of what some of our law enforcement agencies are doing. We need you to go out there and solve problems in the community. You can find crime anywhere.
That's
You
right.
can find crime anywhere. Can you take time to fix an issue or a problem that's going on within your community? That's what we need from our Black and brown officers.
I like the phrase you use, diversity of thought. We can't just come in as the same that, the typical people. We have to come in with the desire to solve problems. But I'm going to go into the next question because as you talk, you answering some parts of some of the questions, and I really want you to share, being that you say more of us need to become a part of the organization. What advice do you have for men listening on how they can play a role in creating positive change?
The best way to play a role in positive change is literally to be disciplined. You have to be disciplined in everything you do. Young men, especially in the ages between 13 and 23, you have to be disciplined and principled. And what I mean by that is if you can't control yourself and if you can't control your thought, how are you expected to make changes that matter, especially within our communities? And so I truly believe that that has to start within a person. I have a saying that says, you know what, in law enforcement, I don't need anyone supporting us. What I would like for people to do is police themselves. Because if you can police yourselves, think about if everyone just policed themselves, followed the rules, and was disciplined about everything they do. Think about the society that we live in. Think about the Black community. Think about if we were principled, disciplined, we took care of one another. And every time I got ready to make a decision, I put my community first. How is this going to affect my community? How is this going to affect others that look like me? If we would just do some of those simple things before we made actions or inactions for that matter, think about what our society would look like. Think about some of the minority communities in economic distress zones if people would adapt that policy of just being disciplined and thinking about the decisions that they make first and how is this going to affect me and the community that I live in.
That is really important and a great perspective as well. Because sometimes if we're going to change things and if we don't think about our actions will impact the overall, our community, ourselves, and our families and stuff like that, we may do things that we later regret. So
Yeah.
Thinking about our actions, I think that is really important in creating positive change because we are the ones that will have to create those changes. So if we don't be intentional and deliberate with our actions, then we may not create the change that we want to see. Things will continue to be the same, not realizing our role in creating the change.
Exactly.
Yes, so I really appreciate that perspective. So my next question is, how can we as Black men help to change the narrative? And you can take it from the perspective from a police officer, because I know we sometimes talk about the negative parts of police, but not realizing that maybe we should be the one coming in and changing it. But I'll just leave that to you. How can we as Black men change the narrative of Black men?
So we're fighting against history on that one. That's a great question, but we're fighting against American history as far as who we are and what people thought of us. So the best way that we can change that narrative is just being self-disciplined. And so let me give you an example. It should be to a point to where someone should see someone that looks like you or me and say, if a crime happened or a fight or something like that, oh, there's no way, absolutely not, that person was involved in that or that would do something like that. We should hold ourselves to a standard in the sense of, one, it's unfair that we automatically get targeted and things like that, and people perceive us as more violent than our white counterparts. That's already unfair. That's just a society that we live in. And unfortunately, it was created by history. But what are we doing to stop that narrative, as you asked in that question? How am I holding myself accountable so that when people see me or they see somebody else like me, they're saying, man, there goes a good man right there. Not a black man, not a white man. There goes a good man right there. So, what are we doing to hold ourselves accountable? It starts with accountability. You have to be accountable for your actions. You have to be accountable and not being a statistic as far as not wanting to be disciplined and and hold down a job, not wanting to increase your education or learn a skill craft or trade. We have to take care of our communities and our families and ensure that we make sure that those who need our help in our communities are getting our help. And we have to do all these things in our community for us to change the narrative of who we are. We know who we can be, but what are we doing to be that person? And it all starts with you holding yourself accountable and saying, this is what I'm going to do today. This is how I'm going to make a difference. I'm going to make a difference by ensuring that I'm going to go to work every day and I'm going to come home. I'm going to take care of my family. I'm going to sit down with my children and ensure that they know and understand the rules and laws of the land. I'm going to ensure that if they need help with their schoolwork, I'm going to help them address their schoolwork and teach them how to be socially inept in society and to understand what goes on in society. I'm going to do my part just within that little realm, that little circle of my family to ensure that I'm holding myself and my family accountable. If we can just do that, family by family or individual by individual, I think that will help us change the narrative and we'll start to see ourselves differently.
Man, I really appreciate that. Holding ourselves accountable is a big piece in changing the narrative. And we can't leave what we can do for others to do for us.
Yes.
We have to do the things that we can do to make the difference. Yes, we already know, as you mentioned, that history already painted a picture. That's something that's already in existence. So now we have to make the commitment to change us for us. So those who are coming behind us can realize and have a different perspective of themselves. So I really appreciate that, the perspective of holding ourselves accountable. I think that is very helpful in regards to us as we go forward. So my next question, what or who has influenced or inspired you to pursue the path that you're on today? Who inspired you to become a police officer?
So flashback till 1992, the summer of 1992. I was living in Wagner, Oklahoma at the time. My car broke down at the time, and I was on my grandfather's farm, and he had no farm truck, so didn't have any tags, no insurance, no nothing on this. I mean, the only thing legal in that truck was me. So I remember going to work that summer. I was working at this factory at Fort Gibson in Fort Gibson, Oklahoma. This is the Juicy Juice plant. We stack Hi-C boxes and all that other stuff. And I was speeding, and I got pulled over by an Oklahoma state trooper. He was a white state trooper. And if you know a little bit about Oklahoma, you know that there's some racial tension in Oklahoma as well. So I did not know what to expect. I got pulled over, and he comes up to the window and he looks at me and he goes, "I need your driver's license, registration, and your insurance." And I handed him my driver's license. And he said, "I need your registration and insurance too." And I said, "I don't have it." He goes, "You don't have your registration or you don't have your insurance?" I said, "I don't have either." And he goes, "Whose truck is this?" I said, "It belongs to my father. It's my grandfather's truck."
Yeah.
He goes, "Do you know how fast you were going?" And I said, "No, I don't. The speedometer's broke on the truck as well." He goes, "You know what? Step out of the car." And so at this point in time, I fully expected to go to jail. I didn't know how fast I was going or what have you. And he walked me back to his patrol car, and we're sitting back there in his patrol car. And he said, "Where the hell are you going so fast?" And I go, "Well, I don't know how fast I was going. I'm on my way to the plant out there in Fort Gibson. I work out there. I'm working out there this summer to make a little bit of extra money to buy school clothes and new cleats for football season coming up. This is my senior year." And he goes, "Really?" And he goes, "I got a son your age, and I wish he would take a little bit more responsibility and do what you're doing to take care of himself and get a job and make sure that you have." He gave me back my license and he said, "Hey, slow down for me and drive carefully."
Wow.
I walk back to my car. I get in, still waiting on something horrible to happen, and I drive to work. Every day that summer that he was on duty, he was sitting in that median and he'd wave at me, knowing the only thing legal about that truck that I was driving was me.
Wow.
And he never stopped me
Wow.
that whole summer. And for me, he made a difference to me because, like I said, he could have ruined my whole summer. He could have did a whole thing. So it was that it made me realize that the officer's most powerful weapon that he has is discretion.
Wow.
He has the discretion to be able to, one, say whether or not I go to jail or not. And where that played such a big role with me was this: nobody ends up in front of a judge or in jail or in prison without going through a police officer first. That right there said to me, I have to be a police officer. It's just something that I have to do because, like, again, no one goes to prison, no one goes to jail, no one ends up in court on a criminal charge unless they go through a police officer first. So I wanted to be able to use that same discretion that that state trooper had with me on the public that I serve.
Man, the story itself is powerful and inspiring on so many levels because your expectations turn out, you get a different result from what you have expected. And like
Yes.
you said, as a police officer, your most powerful weapon is discretion. And being in that position at that time, maybe you wouldn't be where you are today because things could have changed. You may not pursue or continue training or continue working, and the path could have been different. But that one experience gave you a perspective. And that's what we can do as men. Sometimes not, it doesn't matter what position we're in. We can talk to somebody in a way that can give them a change of mind and
Yes.
start to see in themselves and start to question, can I can do this or I can do that based on the experience, because that person allow you to continue working, but now you see in yourself, you know what, I could be like this person to help others. And that's what I've experienced because I met you so many years ago when I was in school doing my undergrad. And you have been the same person. When did I meet you? 2000 and maybe 7 or 8.
Yep.
And you have been the same person who
Thank
really
you.
display leadership, but also be the example for us within our community. So that's really commendable, especially as a Black man within our community, to be an inspiration for others. So I know the discretion and all that stuff, where it started and stuff like that, but you really have been an example and a leader within the community. So I'm going to continue with my next question. What is your perspective on the climate of Black men in society today?
So, what is my perspective on the climate of? So, I think we are one of the things when I look at that on the perspective for Black men in on the climate today is I look at our Black women as well too,
Okay.
and there are more Black women with PhDs and high level jobs and things like that than ever before, and I also see that within Black men as well. See, we get caught up in looking at the narrative that the media pushes out there instead of us pushing out our own media, our own narrative. And so when you look at things, we are doing well for ourselves. And oftentimes we only see the negative and we focus so much on the negative that we don't focus on the positives. We don't focus on the Richard Crosses. We don't focus on the Gary Hills. We don't focus on the doctors and the chiefs of police around the nation who are men of color. They get so much flack and they don't get enough respect for the positions that they're in. Because what people don't realize, especially when it comes to us being as Black men, when we get in these positions, diversity attracts diversity. It's the reason why we have to get into these positions and stay. When I was at the sheriff's office early on, there were some deputies that worked there and they used to use the N word like it was, going crazy. And I went in there and I said one day to him, I said, hey, when we're all wearing this uniform and we're out here doing jobs, that's not going to fly with me. When you guys are off work and y'all around the bonfire with Billy Bob or whatever doing what you do, that's on you guys. But when we're at work, I said that y'all not going to use that word around me. And so the next day, I got called into the sheriff's office, and I thought I was going to be fired because I'm the only black guy working there. So the sheriff goes, so I heard people were using the N word yesterday. What do you want done? I go, excuse me. He goes, I heard some deputies were using the N word. What do you want? What do you think should happen to them? And I said, Sheriff, I got my own set of nuts. I said what I needed to say. They heard me. They understood. You can give them some diversity classes or something, but I don't think that that's going to help. I think those guys are old enough and set in their ways. They're going to do what they want to do. I said what I had to say. I don't want anything done. So I went home and I talked to my grandfather that day. And I was telling him what happened. And I said, I'm really thinking about quitting. And he said, why? And I said, well, just the atmosphere. I don't feel like they want me there. They're using this word. And he said, do not let white people run you out of a job that you like, because history has shown us that that's what they do when they want to keep someplace and they want to keep it all white and they don't want diversity.
Wow.
You have to stay there so that other black men can see you enduring and being there and setting the example so that they have footsteps to follow in. So the perspective that I see on us is we have to be the trendsetters. We have to be the ones to go into the jobs and be the only, black person there and endure so that, again, diversity can attract diversity. You're not going to want to go work someplace that you see or be a part of something where you don't see anyone that looks like you. Well, someone's got to take that first step. Why shouldn't it be us?
Man, that is so powerful right there. So powerful, Chief. I can tell you, just it is so powerful. Be that person. Sometimes you have to endure some things that you don't want to, but if you leave, others may not take the step to come in. So yes, you may have to push through and deal with some things that you don't really want to deal with. But if you stand firm and stand strong on your values and your character, that which may cause you to leave may just encourage others if you stay. And by staying, open the door. Even without opening the door, some will just want to come and join you because of the work that you're doing and because of what you stand for. Man, that is really powerful. And I hope our listeners really take that in, because sometimes we are going to be the only one in some spaces.
Correct.
But for more of us to get into those spaces, we have to stay. And sometimes we have to just endure some things that we may not like in the moment. But I do believe if we're in those spaces, we are strong enough. We can just call it that we are chosen to be there to endure so others can see the opportunity and join us to make things better. So, man, I really appreciate that perspective. And I know this is kind of tied close to what you just said, and it is, what changes do you want to see in general amongst Black men? It could be summed up with what you just said about the stay in the spaces that we are, or even want to be in those spaces to make a difference. But I'm still going to give you the opportunity to share anything that you have else on that perspective, on the general change that you want to see amongst Black men.
We have to take pride in ourselves and everything that we do.
Man, that's it.
We have to, it doesn't matter what your job title is. It doesn't matter what degree you hold, whether it's a PhD or whether it's a GED. Take pride in the accomplishment. See, we oftentimes forget that we need to take little steps first. And we need to take pride in each one of those little steps, those little accomplishments that we do every day. Many people don't wake up every day. Many people don't have a job that they can go to. Many people don't have, those are the little wins. A win is a win. Let's take it and take pride in that, because what that does is when you take pride in those things, I mean, you speak things into existence within yourself. You kill the warrior within when you're constantly being negative about yourself and about the way your life is going and about the things that you see on TV. Take the little wins and let's look at all the little wins. And by the end of the day, If you look at all the little wins that you have, you'll see that it's a big win. And that's that taking pride in the little steps and the little accomplishments that we make every day. That's going to give us that perspective that we need to have to do bigger things.
And that is important for us to take pride in everything that we do, not just the, as you said, the major accomplishments or the big accomplishments, the small, even just to take the action.
Yep.
Yeah, but we need to take pride in everything that we do. We already know what society says about us. And if we don't take pride in what we do, who will?
Exactly.
So it's important that we do. So I really appreciate that. My next question is, what was a pivotal moment in your life? I know you share that experience when you're working with a police officer, but is there any other pivotal moment that you'd like to share? Or if you want to go deeper into that which you share already, but what pivotal moment you have experienced? It could be this recent, starting the police academy at the HBCU.
So I've had two really pivotal points in my life. And the first one was before I was a police officer when I got kicked out of school at Lincoln University. I was trying to get into law enforcement. So I had a bunch of failures too. So you got to look at those as steps too. So I took the highway patrol test and I didn't pass it the first time when I was kicked out of school because I needed a job, something needed to happen. Put in for the Jefferson City Police Department, got to the last round of interviews, and they chose someone else. There was only one position open and didn't get that job. So I kept getting turned down, or I kept not making the cut, I should say, to get into law enforcement. I had gotten married because I got my girlfriend pregnant, and then she ended up leaving and things like that. And so now here I am sitting here with an infant, trying to raise my daughter on my own. And that pivotal point came one night where I'm sitting in my house with my 18-month-old baby on my lap, and our electricity got cut off. So I was like, I got to get another job. So I took on another job working at Hardee's in the morning doing breakfast. I was at that point in time, I was working at Scholastic. So that trying to just make ends meet. And so then I tried to go get on food stamps. And I remember sitting in the parking lot for about an hour trying to drop my pride enough to go in there and fill out this paperwork to get food stamps. And then when I went in there and did it, because of my paychecks from Hardee's and stuff, I was $40 over the limit to be able to get food stamps. And so here I am, can't get food stamps. Electricity still cut off. My daughter's over at the neighbor's house, and she was a good lady. She was watching her for free for me. I said to myself at that point in time, this will never happen to me or any of my children ever again.
Wow.
It will never be in this situation that I'm in right now, ever. That was the pivotal point, and it made me go back to school, get my degrees, and not stop, because I can't go back to that dark house, especially with my daughter looking at me, knowing that she's depending on me to live and for food and substance. That could never happen to me or any of my children again.
Wow.
So then the second pivotal point is exactly what you said, was the starting the police academy. To be able to influence people that look like me to do this job in today's atmosphere, into how people feel about law enforcement. And they look at me and say, hey, you started this and I'm here because of you. That to me speaks volumes. And I think the first time I ever heard one of the recruits say that to me, especially after everything he's been through with law enforcement and stuff like that, I felt like I should have retired then, retired out on top. But it really, again, it filled me with joy. It filled me with that motivation that we talked about earlier, to continue to press on, to continue to recruit as many Black and brown people as I can to go into law enforcement and to go to our academy, and then to go to some of these agencies and be the diversity that those agencies need, so that other people in those communities can see people that look like them and hopefully pursue the same career.
Man, that is really great. Really great. Just from your experience and saying to yourself that will not happen again. And that's the motivation and starting the police academy. And it's always great when someone get an opportunity from something that we do to create change. So that is really a powerful initiative itself, but just follow through on that desire to be the difference, to help someone get into spaces that they may sometimes don't get into. And I've heard a lot of students now in criminal justice on campus talking about that they want to be so, because it's there, and it's easier for them to become what they see. You see what I'm saying? It's
Absolutely.
not way out there anymore. They have it right in their home. So man, that is really something to talk about that will stand the test of time. I tell you, with some of the, hopefully those coming behind will see the value and keep carrying that torch, because I believe it's something really great that's happening for the community. Thanks for sharing that. So my next question is, what life lesson have you learned late in life that you believe the current generation will benefit from?
There's no substitute for hard work.
No substitute for hard work.
You learn lessons at the bottom of the barrel that being at the top cannot teach you, sir.
Ooh,
There is, it just doesn't happen like that.
man, that's right. And a lot of people, now, well, I'm not going to say a lot of people. Some people, it could be a lot. It could be a lot running from doing the work, but it's in doing the work you get your fulfillment. You create the opportunities, and you actually get to tap into your own greatness, because if you're not willing to work hard, you will just do the bare minimum to get by. And doing the hard work help you to find out about you, and that's important.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But before I ask my final question, I want you to tell the listeners where can they support what you're doing, and how they can reach out to you, so they can send some students or young people to come and join the police academy.
So you can always go to Lincoln University's website at lincolnu.edu. That's lincolnu.edu. And if you go up into the little hourglass, well, the little search glass, and just type in Law Enforcement Training Academy or Lincoln University Police Department, the information about our academy is there. You can also make donations to the Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy through our Office of Advancement, and or contact Dr. Kevin Wilson to make any kind of donations. But what we need the most is for people to continue doing what they're doing. We have done very little advertising for the Law Enforcement Training Academy, with the exception of what people have seen on the news and Time Magazine and the newspapers and stuff like that. We haven't even advertised. It has been all word of mouth, and exactly what you said. And that is, when people see the recruits running, working out, doing the things and stuff on campus, they see it and they say, hey, I want to do that. It filled my heart the other day during homecoming when I heard that our Lincoln University's Mr. Freshman wanted to pursue a criminal justice degree and go through the Lincoln University Law Enforcement Training Academy.
That's awesome.
That filled me with a lot of joy to hear that. And so push people our way. If people are unsure about whether or not they want to get into law enforcement, send them to the Lincoln University Police Department, 900 Leslie Boulevard, Suite C, here in Jefferson City, Missouri. And I will take time out of my day to have that conversation with them and to give them what wasn't given to me, and let them know what they will experience and what they're going to go through, and why it is important that if they're even thinking about it, to at least give it a try.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And I know the young people will be in good hands, and they will have great leadership and great example. And you all be listening to someone who didn't start at the top. So you understand. So it doesn't matter your background, it doesn't matter where you're coming from. Chief Hill understands, because he start at the bottom. I know he's still climbing. He started at the bottom, but he knows how to lead and how to be of service to others, and which is great in being a leader. I think this is my final question. What impact do you want to have on the world?
Well, the impact that I want to leave on the world is that my life meant something and that I live my life for other people and not just me. And I wasn't selfish.
Wow.
And that once I got over the wall, I threw the rope back over to help others that look like me. That's the impact that I want to leave.
Well, man, you've been doing that. I can tell you. From I met you, you have been that type of person. So, which is great. And that's over 10 years now since I've been here. So, that's really great. But that's something that we all need to strive for, where or maybe lift as we climb. And once we get through the next phase, we help others to get there as well, or just to get in. They will still have to do the work, but at least we open the door so they can get an opportunity. And I know you have opened a big door, not just for one person, but for a lot of people, which is great. So, Chief Hill, thanks for being here on the Black Male Impact. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for the great insights and perspective.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Cross. I appreciate you and what you're doing too as well.
All right, thanks, man. I appreciate it.